SAG-AFTRA has a wonderful partnership with the CSA, Casting Society of America, and the Teamsters 399, who represents casting directors. And we meet quarterly and we discuss issues of mutual concern, and we bring our members' issues to them as well, so that way we can help you, all of you, in your careers. So we did bring up the issue of self-taping, and they were very surprised to hear a lot of concerns from our members, a lot of things that were correct, and some things that maybe were not quite so correct. So we're so happy that the CSA board and these wonderful people behind me said, let us come to your membership and let us tell them all about really the truths about self-taping and how they can find out what is really required. So we're so grateful to have them here. Please join me and welcome them. I'm going to start off with Jenny Jue right here, who's going to introduce herself right after I hand her the mic. And please join me in welcoming them.
Hi, everyone. Is this on? Hello. Thank you guys so much for coming. I want to thank our casting directors here. This is Tracy Twinkie Byrd, Caroline Liem, and Krista Husar. And thanks to Ilian for putting this together. This was originally going to be a different topic tonight, but when she brought up that self-taping was such a big issue for you guys, we decided to change it over to more of a self-tape Q&A and panel. I just wanted to start by saying one thing, and hopefully this kind of sets a tone for this evening, which is ultimately the best person for the role gets cast for the role, regardless of what kind of tape, regardless of what kind of quality tape. Any one of us has at least one story per project that we work on where we end up casting somebody who didn't have a scene partner, did it on his iPhone, and it is the worst lighting. He's basically in a closet. And so I just wanted to put that out there first and foremost, that any kind of tips we give you guys tonight, it's meant to be constructive. It's meant to be in a perfect world, in a perfect scenario, when you have endless time and you can have a scene partner that you trust and love. Those are our tips, and that's what our goal is for tonight, is to give you practical advice for what we're looking for. But ultimately, if you are the right person for the role and the best actor for the role, you will get cast. So I definitely just wanted to let you guys know that up front. So that being said, I did kind of want to go through and talk about the anatomy of a self-tape, starting with a slate. What kind of slate do you guys prefer? What do you want to see on a slate? Do you want it before, at the beginning? Do you want it at the end, after?
I honestly usually, before, if I end up sharing it with producers, the directors, I usually cut the slate. That said, I do like to maybe hear name and height, something basic, maybe a full body, but usually I always cut it out, so.
If the slate doesn't invite me and isn't in the right lane of what I'm about to see in the scene, I cut it too. But what I love is when the slate gives me a flavor, a vibe of what I'm about to see. So it isn't one slate fits all. I know that different offices, they ask for all kinds of things in a slate. I'm fine with just a name. But I do like to see full body. I like to see, I like to see the silhouette.
I agree. Name, and I don't cut the slate, I keep it, but I like the slate separate from the audition tape, so that there's a slate, so when you upload it, there's the slate and then there's the work. So that if my director needs to see a little bit more, or the personality or something like that, then I have the slate to go with. And I like full body, and I do profiles, and I do want to see personal style.
Do you guys put self-tape directions when you do a self-tape request? Do you put slate directions in there?
Yes.
Yes.
So for me, I think it's location, if you're not based in LA, or even if you are based in LA. To me, location, having location on there, height, name. But I usually put that in the directions. So I would say if you're not sure what to do for a slate, ask your agent. Can you clarify if they need a slate? What kind of slate do they need? And perhaps send it separately, just in case we don't want to use it.
Right. Yeah.
And by the way, there are question cards. I believe we have people coming around to take your question cards if you've filled out a question. She's going to come around and take your questions. So just put them up when she comes by. Thanks. Lighting.
Oh, dear God.
So one of the big misconceptions, I think, was that you need professional lighting, you need to go to a studio to get this lighting accomplished.
The girls know better than that. All the girls have the circle light. They just do. They have the ring light, and it's just... Yeah,
Can
all
we
the
see your...
You have a ring light, right? All the girls have... Yep, there it is. That's the small version. There's the larger version. Everybody, we get this. We get the ring light. Just stop it.
Where do you get one of those?
Amazon.
I got mine on Amazon for $8. Okay? Right?
Everything's on Amazon. No. You can have the larger ring light.
Yeah.
Because the larger ring, it's also on Amazon, but if you're on Instagram, it'll just pop up because Siri is always listening to you anyway, so just say ring light. And then when you turn it on, you think it's magic, but actually it's an algorithm because they listening. Ring light.
So ring lights are great. Sometimes you'll add a lamp to it. That's cool. I know back in the day it was big box lights and all of that. You don't need that whole big setup. You don't need to do it anymore. This little thing I took with me to New York. Okay, and you don't usually in the casting office you're maybe 6 feet away from camera, right? So we're not going to know how far away you are, right? So you just bring that right up here where it needs to so it glows just right. You bring your reader close enough, make sure your reader isn't too loud if they're that close to you, and that's it. Yeah. You can do a tripod or, the old school way, put it on some books, on a shelf. We don't know, we're not asking you to, we only see how much, right? This is all we see. We don't know what's happening everywhere else. Just keep that clean.
Literally stick it in a mug.
Yeah.
And put the mug up high, and boom. You gotta watch them youngins on YouTube.
All
Those
the
babies will
influencers.
teach you everything.
Speaking of readers, where can somebody find a reader?
Class. That would be a great place to find a reader. Not your mom.
Some
Unless she's
moms
an
are good
actress.
readers, though.
Some moms
others,
are good
they're
readers.
Some
pretty
moms are good readers.
Yeah.
I've gotten bad moms. Their cursing sounds like off, and you're just like, ooh, that's a mom.
So
But
class.
but at the end of the day, if you don't have an actor friend or someone in the family that's an actor, I think as long as you have somebody, preferably in the room, that can connect with you, that you can, connect with and do your work with, it's okay if they sound a little stiff or they're not a pro, because we just need to get that first feel from you in the pre-read and the self-tape.
I think ultimately we just don't want it to be distracting, right? To not just your performance, but just, when we show it to producers and director, we just want to make sure you shine and that they're not waiting to hear a reader's voice. We want to hear your voice. And that's a good point about making sure your reader is farther away from the microphone
Yeah.
than you are. eye line. A lot of people get this wrong, and this one is pretty basic, and I feel like it's fairly universal. If, well, would one of you like to explain eye line and where it should be?
I
On a
like
tape.
closest to the camera as possible. So right to the side, left or the right, but closest to the camera as possible.
For eye level to
Eye
the
level.
to the camera.
Oh, level.
Both. Eye line, eye
Okay.
level.
So I like camera lens, eye level with the auditioner, with you. But if your reader happens to be really tall and you can't get that person to scooch down and you can't come up on books or something, then split the difference with the camera. So you're not looking way up, you're just looking, the camera's only catching half of it.
Face forward, no profile.
Face forward, not profile.
Do you think that's funny? No. But I've gotten profile. Seriously.
So many.
I'm
so
like,
many.
where is she looking? Who? What is happening? So yeah, it seems funny, but
It's
that is
true.
a great point.
Yeah, and part of it is, again, this idea that if you're looking this way and the camera is looking this way, I'm missing all of this shit that's going on over here. I'm not seeing that at all. So we don't want to miss that stuff, you know? Yeah.
That's the good stuff. That's where the juice is.
Yeah, exactly. Scene labels. Do you guys like scene labels?
If there's a lot of takes, please. Scene 1, take 1, scene 1, take 2. If you're sending us 10, yeah, please.
And do you like multiple takes?
No.
Probably no, because I'm sure we're all so anal, we're going to watch it all. And then we have to choose and just maybe
I don't want that responsibility. That's between you and your rep. Yeah.
I like multiple takes,
I
actually.
know you do.
Yeah. And part of
Likes
it, yeah. And
Subjective.
And part of it, I think, especially if it's a short scene, if it's only 10 lines, I want to see some range. I want to see a different take on it in case that first one isn't right. Because how many times have we had someone come in the room and they misinterpret it completely that first time, and then you give them direction and they end up booking the role because that's all they needed, right? So to me, I like an extra take. Yeah. All right. If you had them, would you want them in separate files or would you want them?
Yes.
Agreed. Yeah, that's how I prefer it. Going back to this idea of not needing a perfectly lit, a professional reader, a Canon 5D camera to capture this moment, this audition. Do you guys have stories of when you've cast somebody and the tape was awful, or it just was not good quality? It just wasn't.
So many.
Yeah.
You want? So I was. Can I name the show? I don't.
Sure.
Okay. So I was working on Assassin's Creed, and we were looking for. We needed a percentage of diversity, and it needed to be it was very specific. And so I looked nationally, I looked internationally, and we found somebody. But he was away planning his wedding. And yes, and I said no. He was on the reserve somewhere. And so I got him to self-tape, and he did not have the right equipment. He had his phone, that was it. It came in, and I saw him for a split second. I thought, oh my gosh, this is the guy. He said maybe 2 words. I said, this is him. And then the screen just started oozing, and it was gone. And my understanding was this was the only window I had to get him, because he was going to go get married. And so I circled back, and I said, I know he's our guy. You need to get him back on the phone. You have to go find him out in the wilderness and get him back. And so Yeah, so they got him. We gave him some notes just in case, and obviously to check your material, to check your self-tape before you send it in. Hopefully you're doing that. I know that you're supposed to do that, but I hope that, and so he had checked it, but something happened in the transfer. So anyway, he took the notes. He literally did it. It was against some log cabin, but it was a clean background, okay? Sent that in. It was natural lighting, but it was quiet enough, and we booked him. So, but it takes communication on both sides for sure.
I did Sparkle, the remake, and I was casting the role of Sister, and Carmine Jogo, which was my top choice, but of course, you put your top choice at somewhere near the bottom because the director always has to think he has the choice. And because, they're men. And so, that's awesome. So, she was on holiday in Switzerland. And I sent all the tape requests and information and everything, and it was taking days and days. I'm like, what is happening? And she was like, I don't have anybody to read with me but Mummy. And I was like, okay, have Mummy read. Like, I don't care. They were in a bathroom because it was bright, and it always has why do bathrooms always have the best? I have no idea.
Great acoustics, too.
Right. They were in a bathroom. It was her mother. It was the scene between Mike Epps and Sister, and it was just awkward as hell because her mom is reading words it just didn't make sense, but she was so good. So she got it, of course, because she's Carmine Jogo. But it was the lighting was, so she was backlit, so she was a silhouette. It was very interesting, but it's still, we could hear it, and we kind of saw her. She almost looked like an apparition, and yeah, it worked. She was haunting us on tape. It's fabulous.
So it didn't matter if you were missing some. It was just the package that you were like, this is it. Okay. One other thing that has come up is, do you watch all the tapes that come in?
Oh my God, yes.
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 All of them.
That's why
my
one
job.
take.
Exactly. I just did a monologue slam. Well, it was called Flip the Script in partnership with NBC Universal. So I had been UCP. So I had been doing this monologue slam for years and years and years. And then a friend of mine who was an executive at another network ended up at UCP, and she took it to them, and then they said, "Oh, this would be great." And I was like, yeah. And they were like, how many submissions do you usually get? I was like, 300 to 400. Yeah. As soon as it was $25,000 of prize, it was 1,200 tapes. I had to watch 1,200 tapes.
Wow.
1,200. 1,200. I had to watch 1,200 tapes. Did y'all hear when I said 1,200?
I think that's another thing is self-tapes has opened up casting to all over the world, but that also means sifting through a lot more, which isn't always easy. It's not always easy to give feedback individually, but I would say it's pretty safe to say that they all get watched.
Yep.
To some extent. Yeah.
I mean, why would we risk missing the one? I mean, that's our job. And yeah.
And I think we all kind of go into it hoping this is the one.
And if it's not the one for this project, then we don't want to miss somebody who's right for the next project, because all of these self-tapes and auditions are a process to being hired, maybe not now, but eventually. That's the way we meet you. That's the way we learn about you, and we catalog and remember you for when it is right.
The beautiful thing about it is that on Breakdown, I can save each person's audition once it's uploaded and put them in a folder. So sometimes they're great for something else, and they don't even have to audition because they've already auditioned for something else.
If the director says, okay, I'll take that,
Yeah.
that's good enough. They don't need to
Right.
come in again,
Right.
right? Yeah. Yeah. I wish I could keep everything. I feel like there's just limited space. I think I keep on like breakdown. I think I keep.
You know, by age range or type, I'll put them in folders and make lists on breakdown.
You must have so much
that.
storage to be able to keep all those.
Do I? I mean, it's on like you can, there's a folder where you make a list.
Oh.
And then it lives there.
It lives in the
It does
cloud.
not live on my laptop.
Okay.
It
lives
lives
in
there.
the cloud.
And then I just press play.
What approximate which is there one role where you got an absurd amount of tapes submitted?
Oh, I already said that.
I mean, we do worldwide searches, so it can be, I don't even know how to count, but if you're doing North America, Latin America, Australia, Europe, and you're working with other casting directors, and then they're sending you, we're telling them, please filter lightly the folks you think, and then we're watching everything. I mean, it's a full-time job until we find the one.
Yeah, and it takes a lot of organization and a lot of communication between the offices too. So.
Another thing that has come up is it seems to some actors that the length of time in which they have to do a self-tape has gotten smaller and smaller. Explain a situation where you would need a tape extremely quickly. You would need a really quick turnaround on something.
I'll just, a recent one. Lost an actor, needed to get somebody to set right away, didn't have enough time to get them from the freeway to the office. You know, it's put somebody on tape. I need you now. I need you to do it today. You know, they change the schedule a little bit, so maybe they get that person in the next day. And, you know, we do what we need to do because we're under the gun. So it's not coming, we're not creating this problem for you.
We just don't want you, we don't want you to miss the opportunity.
Exactly. That is exactly it. So that's it. And then that's the beauty of a self-tape is I've got that, great, I get it instantly, I can get it to the producers, the director, and it's done. So
Even more reason why it would be good to get one of those little light things, right? Just so you can, portable, can do it from anywhere. Have you guys seen extremely well put together tapes?
Yes.
And describe those a little bit.
Oh, they're a short film.
Multiple camera
I've
angles,
received
cuts.
a short film.
Yep.
Yes, it's been edited. It's got titles and everything. And all it needs is a one sheet, and they can put it into a film festival. It was awesome.
how
He
do you
didn't get
feel
the job,
about that?
but it was awesome.
How do you feel about getting that
a
fully
lot.
produced?
It's a lot. It's a lot. It's a lot. Yeah. Especially when you have directors that don't want you to tell them what camera angles their shot should be. Be like, I'm going to do this over the shoulder dirty, and then I'm going to use this 50 millimeter lens because I feel like this is what this scene calls for.
Does that help a lot in the casting process? I mean, do you give any preference to a tape that comes in like that?
No. I mean, it's cute and that's awesome, and I'll just let them know you should do a short film. Like you should direct. I feel directing happening from you. You're giving me director energy, and go, girl. Just awesome. But no, it's really about the acting, it's about the work. And sometimes when they get so busy with the directing and the lighting and all of that, that you're distracted from what I really need, which are the eyes and the intention and the layers. So, yeah, it can be distracting. But I understand, they want to put their best foot forward. They want to make it perfect. And like we said earlier, where is that world perfect? And how'd you get there?
Yeah, there is no
such thing.
perfect
It just doesn't
to
happen.
any one of us. I think each one of us has different preferences over what we like to see, and especially in terms of, like we talked about earlier, slate and how many takes and all of that. But There is no such thing as perfect in terms of just technical. Yeah. I did have one girl, I feel like her family might have worked in the business in Atlanta, because there was a scene where she was in a car and she's literally driving and the camera is like this, and then it cut to the next scene. I was like, so she wasn't right for the role, but I was like, oh my God, tell her thank you. This is amazing. I appreciate the effort. And to be honest, I do remember her because of that. So, when she's right for something else, but it doesn't, I think that's one of the misconceptions too, is that it has to be kind of professionally done and lit in a way that, is professional, that gives an edge. There's no...
Must have is sound.
Yeah, the actor's the
Sound
edge.
is really important.
sound.
Yeah, sound is so important. Like, I post about this, and y'all have seen it, because I put it on Twitter like every month. I'm like, are you seriously telling me that you don't hear that smoke alarm? Like, if it's gotten to the point where you don't hear the smoke alarm, why am I listening to the beeping of your smoke alarm on my self-tape? Come on, never fail. Every time I have beep, you don't hear it? Okay. So, got it. It's like not hearing the baby in the other room. You don't hear that baby crying? There's a baby crying. Somebody get that baby.
Oh my goodness. So if you do have the baby, you can't do a lot about. But if you're speaking in and around beeping,
What's a battery in it? 9 volt.
put a battery in it, or there is a way in post to lower that sound, right? On iMovie? Yeah. There is. It's very easy to do. Yeah.
This is a little full circle for me tonight, because I was Caroline's intern back in the day, and she got me my first job with a casting director named Joanna Ray, and Krista was our assistant when she first started. And then my first
intern.
Yeah. And then assistant, and then associate. And I think the first panel I was ever on, I was on with Twinkie. So this is a comfortable environment for me. Thank you guys. But going back to those days when we didn't have easy access to self-tapes, we didn't have iPhones and easy. Do you think it's made our job easier or harder?
I think both, off the top of my instinct says both. Because easier in that the communication and the receiving and the sending of self-tapes, much quicker. More challenging because of now the timeline is crunched.
Right.
And now it's even more saturated because it's not just local now in that short time. Now you're dealing globally. So
My cast wouldn't be the same without it. I can think right off the bat for studio films, big studio films, and big TV series of 4 leads that I wouldn't have without self-tapes that came from Mexico or came from Texas, and unknowns that I never would have known about them without self-tapes.
I agree. I get to do Chicago and any little, just everywhere. Whereas before, but the only thing is that the thing that I loved earlier on is them sending me on the road. So I miss that part. I miss going on the road and having sessions. I miss that part. And it happens from time to time, but I really like to go and meet and just get that connection. And I don't get to have that very much anymore. That's the only thing that I miss. And you are leaving it up to someone else's interpretation of how they interpret the material, and you learn, I at least learn from region to region, how people interpret material. Yeah.
Sometimes with our self-tapes, though, if we're on a big enough budget, that's a pre-read. And so then we're able to fly them to meet us and continue the process. which is a perfect, in a perfect world. Yeah.
Do you have instances where actors, you call them in to audition, they prefer a self-tape?
Yes. Better known actors prefer the privacy of their own home.
Yes, I would agree with that because it's, you have. I know that there's a school of thought where you want to be in the room because you have that connection, okay? And a lot of people have that thought, yes. I know a lot of people who prefer self-taping because they have a lot of control over time and they can choose what take, whereas they wouldn't have that much time in the room to produce that same read.
Maybe another reason to keep those extra takes on your phone or on your computer or whatever, because if it's not quite right and we need turnaround of notes, maybe one of those other takes is the one, and you don't have to retape it all.
Absolutely.
That's a good point. Yep, I like that.
The last thing I'll say is that I do feel like self-tapes are here to stay. We're not going to go back to the days of DVDs and FedExing stuff to producers.
That was hell.
That was hell. When I first started, we were on VHS.
Yes, me too.
I was literally, I had this
VHS.
gigantic camcorder VHS machine. So look, make friends.
Betamax. I
Get
started in
good
Betamax.
scene partners that you trust. Again, you do not have to be spending a lot of money on this. You don't have to be worrying about wardrobe, hair, and makeup. We want to see you guys. Okay? Thank you.
So speaking of seeing you guys, I got to get my selfie.
So, why don't they, please, let's give them another round of applause. They were really amazing. Thank you. What an eye-opener evening.